Yo, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to do another should you buy. This time we were talking about Secret Lair Winter Super Drop 2024. The first one up is Just Add Milk Second Helpings. This one is a really cool art style and it's a return to the milk box style that we had. This Secret Lair is primarily financially focused on Sakashima of a Thousand Faces. If you do not own this card, this is where the primary value of the card comes from. We have Adrux and Niv, which has been printed in Commander 2021, as well as Strixhaven. The original value of these cards was around $20, but the recent reprint in the new Commander set has dropped it to around $10, and it can continue to drop from there. This is a positive EV Secret Lair, and if you really like the art, then I recommend it. I personally really appreciate the Yargle Glutton of Urborg art, which I have a Yargle and Multani deck, which focuses around making one really large creature unblockable and unkillable and hitting my opponents for a lot of damage. And Yargle, this is the perfect Secret Lair to throw into the deck. The next one is Hard Boiled Thrillers. This is a return to the movie soundscape, like 1930s, 1950s art style. This one, the of note, Reconnaissance is in its first foil, and Dire Undercurrents is currently sitting at a foil price of $25 opposed to $10. At the non-foil price, you are about breaking even with the cost of the Secret Lair at about $30. And the foil one, you're ending up a little bit ahead because Reconnaissance and Dire Undercurrents have not seen a reprint. If you're looking for those cards specifically for a all-foil commander deck or all-foil deck, this would be a good pickup in that respect. But once again, value these cards how you personally value them. The next one is Showcase Murders at Karlov Manor, and this uses the showcase art of the current set, including Grenzo, Anawan, Gonti, and Villas. This is a good hitter and might be a good pass opportunity, considering the fact that these are dramatically not a good EV for your money. If you like the art, or if you like where they are bundled with, then it might be a worthwhile pickup. These individual cards are not independently specifically powerful, except for Villas, which has about an $8.50 premium on the card compared to 0, and is basically the only card of value in the set, considering that it is one of the few reprint cards where Gonti has like 8 reprints and Anawan has a few and Grenzo has a couple as well. This is not the best financial Secret Lair, but if you really appreciate the art, then I encourage you to buy it yourself. The next one is Prismatic Nightmares. This one, none of the cards are spectacularly valuable, but each of them carry their own value and are independently powerful, many of which have seen reprints at common or uncommon. This is also a high premium for the foils, with Reign of Filth being a first foil of the card, Simian Spirit Guide being a $10 foil at its cheapest foil version, and it going up from 17 to even higher for its original foil printing. Prince of Thralls is a mythic from Shards of Alara with a $30 foil, which is dramatically improved from $6. This is not a spectacularly played or powerful card, but it is a very useful card if you like Demon Tribal, in Grixis Demon Tribal, which I happen to own a card. This is a set that I will probably take advantage of all 5 cards, and I plan to purchase. Keep in mind that the non-foil version is dramatically under what your price is, so you need to evaluate yourself how much you enjoy the art of this set, but otherwise the foil version is a slam dunk if you want to bling out a specific deck using these cards. The Beauty of the Beast is the next one we're going to talk about. And this one is in a similar vein where none of the cards are particularly valuable, with the exception of Serpent of Yawning Depths, which is currently at about $8.50 and very good in your Serpent and like deep sea horror deck. I really appreciate Scourge of Valkas as a really cool 5 draw 4/4 like dragon that has a really cool ability. And Felidar Guardian and Peregrine Drake are the most ubiquitous used cards because of their infinite combos. We are also seeing a first foil of Serpent of Yawning Depths. We're seeing a high priced foil in Felidar Guardian, which has not seen a foil printing in a long time. Same thing with Scourge of Valkas. If you are buying the non-foil version of this card, of this like secret lair, this is a negative EV if you're planning to purchase these individual cards. However, it is dramatically positive if you have a high premium on the foils of these cards, especially with the cool art that they do have. I will be including Voracious Hydra in my like Hydra deck that from the Warhammer 40K set that I have purchased. It is a nice little shoe in, and it's really cool to have additional alternate art and cool art variants within that deck. And finally, we're on Deceptive Divination. This is a very low cost as far as the cards secret lair, where the individual cards are not specifically printed at a high premium, but the cards reach a very large usability. You're looking at Eternal Witness, Scheming Symmetry, and Price of Progress, all of which are very highly played, including also Wall of Omens, which is a very highly played card as well, for white card draw with a nice little defensive edge to
I'll have to
stop a
look at
lot
it.
of
I
the
don't remember
chip
where I've seen
damage
it
that you
before
might
again.
see in a commander game.
Ah,
And Circular Logic has a nice weird misprint where it is the only counterspell printed at sorcery instead of instant. This is not the official card text, and when you play this card, be aware that it should be an instant, and as errata text is an instant. So if you play this with people, like make sure that you have your phone that has a charge and battery and access to the internet to be able to like let people know like I'm countering your spell. Like I know that it says sorcery, but it is in fact an instant. This has all of these cards have plentiful foiling reprints, and if you really like sort of this tarot card style, once again, I'm not going to dissuade you from purchasing it. It is of note that this secret layer is $5 cheaper than other secret layers, despite having a lower print value of the individual cards. I personally really enjoyed the scheming symmetry because I like the kind of like esoteric art of like the two like birds with the knives in their hands, right? And I think this is going to be really cool in foil when we finally get it, but I can't declare like what it will finally look like. So, one thing I've noticed is that the foil versus the non-foil pricing has a very large difference. Specifically, that the foils, because of the first printing and the rare printings of foils, is dramatically higher. It actually changes the value of the Dark Mysteries bundle from a like fairly negative expected value to a fairly high value if you value those foils at the same premium that the market has. And the same thing is true for Beastly Breakfast with those foils, primarily in Reconnaissance, Reign of Filth, and Serpent of Yawning Depths. Once again, if you value the foils, you're getting a little bit better value because these foils have not necessarily been printed in a prior set. So, what are my thoughts? My thoughts are these are fairly low value secret layers, but there's plenty of interesting and playable cards. And considering the depth and variety of playable of commander decks that I have, I find a lot of these have value. If you care about foils, this is a pure slam dunk. There is like very few printings of these cards, and they're very high value. So if you care about foiling out a full deck, or if you care about blinging out specific cards within your deck, especially role players in a commander deck or role players within some vintage or legacy decks with like Price of Progress, this might be the secret layer for you. Personally, I bought the foil bundle, which included each of the secret layers in foil because I wanted the foil premium. And you do not get a discount for the foil versus non-foil premium. It is $40 more or $50 more expensive for each of the individual pieces, which is the premium that they put on each bundle. But the foil multiplier on each of those cards, especially the first foil printing and the like foil printing of a card that is not seen a foil printing since like Shards of Alara or similar, really brought my attention to these secret layers. Now we're going to talk about print to ship. And print to ship is a change in how Secret Lair is using its distribution model. So how it worked prior is that it was print to demand. And in a print to demand set, they have a window, and then all the orders that make it in that window will be printed, and then they will ship that amount. And it is a variable print rate based off who wants those cards in the given month. This is a print to demand where they have used quote unquote historical demand data based on their metrics to predict demand and then print based off that predicted demand. And some of those secret layers will sell out and some of those will not. One thing to know is that some people in the MTG finance space are saying that this is a return to collectability. Well, by nature of having a limited space to actually purchase these cards, you have created hard limits already, but those have not been determined by Wizards. Now that collectability has been reined in and decided by Wizards. So instead of letting the market decide what is the ongoing demand of that product, we're now letting Wizards decide the actual demand of that product. And that can, and it is important to understand that Wizards is not incentivized to sell out on day one or create a artificial amount of demand. They want to match demand where the ideal printing is demand less one printing, right? Where there is somebody who is willing to pay a high premium for those cards, but not necessarily owning those cards. And it is also important to understand that the hard limits always exist. Once those cards are printed, they are not reprinted. And as far as secret layers are concerned, the specific art and specific style has not been reprinted yet. And I say yet because the jury is out whether Wizards will ever reprint certain secret layer cards in specifically the secret layer art, style, and foiling. The next bullet point I want to talk about print to ship is that there's a certain fear of missing out or FOMO, because if these cards are like if the demand is misallocated and there's an extraordinarily high demand for that product, then it will sell out. And it creates a indeterminate amount of time for someone to make a decision. This is a fundamentally anti-consumer practice, but it is made for the benefit of a pro-consumer idea. And Wizards talked about it, and that pro-consumer idea is adequate shipping time. And if you have been a purchaser of secret layers in the past, the shipping time can be extraordinarily egregious. Specifically, the Heads I Win, Tails You Lose secret layer commander deck took over a year, and over 50 secret layers were released before that specific commander deck was shipped. In other news, there was other secret layers that had literally shipped after a prior secret layer had been released and shipped. This had led to a lag time of like 2, 3, 4, 6 months for regular secret layers to be released. So the fear of missing out and impulse decisions to buy need to be weighed against the customer convenience of actually receiving your product in a reasonable time span, especially a relevant one. If you've already built this deck and you want to add these cards in, are you going to sit for 3 months or 6 months with proxies, with like paper inserts, or are you going to buy those cards and then like have that be dead money and when you replace them with the secret layers that you did have? Those are all considerations. And I think like net, the FOMO kind of balances out the shipping, but it is important to understand that there is a trade off with the print to ship model. And fundamentally, this is, I want to say it's pro reseller, which is anti consumer, but like pro secondary market for like your LGS and similar like speculators. It creates a speculative bubble on these specific secret layers, whether you think that they'll actually sell out in higher demand or not. And I assume that Wizards is going to adjust their secret layer, their like subsequent secret layers, depending on the LGS information or the secondary seller information. And so one of the problems is that all speculative resellers, whether that's an LGS or an independent broker, are buying to then resell and hold and then sell at a later date. These create artificial demand um, for an artificial demand input data to Wizards. And so it creates, so long term, if a lot of resellers have seen profitability, they'll inflate the value and the amount of cards being printed. And that is ultimately bad for your collectors. So this style of print to ship is really good for resellers in the short term, but long term might eventually create speculative bubbles for the resellers and might create future decreased earnings for collectors, whether that's decreased pricing action in the long term because resellers have created artificial demand and an artificial bubble, as well as they might buy up too much of the demand short term and create shortcomings for people who actually have legitimate desire for these cards. So this is a interesting market reaction and will need to be investigated further, and we don't actually know the actual behavior of individual LGSs as well as resellers and their impact on print to ship. It is important to know that if you personally want to buy these cards for your own collection, that resellers can influence one, fear of missing out if resellers have a very high expectation of a selling and Wizards has a mismatch of that demand. Long term, resellers can make money potentially on if the specific printing does go up or has increased demand. And here are my final thoughts. I personally bought the foil bundle. I fell for the FOMO. I actually bought it before doing my analysis. I looked at the cards. I asked myself, do I like the art of these cards? Do I like the coolness factor of these cards? And do I want to put them into decks? And I found that for a majority of the cards, I wanted to do that, and I was okay spending the $200 that came with after shipping. And it is to note that you do get a bonus like secret layer card for that. The card isn't particularly good, and I didn't include it in here because the value was like a couple of dollars for the regular version. Shipping needed to improve for secret layers. The October spooky drop actually was received after the secretversary dropped for me personally, because there was a 4-month delay in shipping where the secretversary shipped almost immediately. And I've had other secret layers take up to 6 months to arrive. That fundamentally is a really terrible customer experience, to put a lot of money into it and then wait months and months and months to finally get the product that you paid for to arrive. And it fundamentally is just a loan to Wizards of the Coast as a liability that they have not delivered. I understand why the Secretversary was delivered a lot quicker because of their financial impact to their financial statements, and they didn't want a large liability balance on their sheets. But it is still like a unacceptable shipping window when the October Superdrop, the Spookyversary, takes so long to reach that you're past uh, Nightmare Before Christmas time when you finally receive your Halloween drop. Now, I do have mixed feelings about printership. I feel like it doesn't match true demand in the long view, where printership or printed demand it actively matches demand at that moment, and long term eventually those cards will appreciate in value. Where printership, you are saying that Wizards has the final say of what demand should be, and then demand is going to realize itself and adjust depending on how much they actually print, which means that the cards have actually increased variability in their pricing. This gives greater customer satisfaction, though, in the fact that shipping windows are a lot tighter, and that there's actually like a tighter demand schedule for shipping of cards, which I think is important, especially if you have designed decks for them, or if you bought a secret layer and wanted to design a deck around some of those cool cards. My first deck was the Demon deck, which was designed around the Liliana secret layer, where it had each of the 4 demons that Liliana made a pact with, as well as Liliana's pact. And I thought that was a really super cool secret layer. I built a demon deck of it, and that deck has persisted through over 2 years, and it's one of my favorite commander decks. One of my also problems is that it creates speculative bubbles where it creates greater uncertainty for resellers. It creates greater uncertainty for customers, and it creates greater uncertainty on Wizards of the Coast, where the print to ship is they're making a prediction and then hoping that there is demand and hoping that the demand is not artificial for those cards. So I think that long term it's going to burn multiple people, but in the short term it can potentially make some resellers money. I do not recommend strictly buying secret layers as a resale like opportunity because of the risk associated with this sort of speculative bubble. If you personally feel like it's within your risk tolerance, or you feel like there is a mismatch of demand or supply, and that you can then create greater price action for, then albeit do what your heart desires. I find that it creates increased variability and increased risk, and you should personally buy secret layers if you appreciate the art and you can use the cards and you will have enjoyment from those cards specifically. I hope that you had a really good time watching this video, and I hope that it was informative. Please leave a comment, please like and subscribe, and watch for future videos. I try to do a lot of analysis specifically for financial side of this hobby with a player and collector focus. Thank you very much, and I hope you had a really good time watching this video.